this is where we are for October 1st, 2015 on the Sawmill band mill project, and it's actually progressing along quite nicely. So coming up on the back side of the mill, it was determined that the operator would stand over here, and that's primarily because there's two reasons. First of all, because the exhaust is going to come out on this side, and this side might suck a little bit for any operator that's going to be over here. And I do have plans of having this be potentially for two operators. There will be a main control arm assembly thing. The operator will stand to the outside of this frame. This rail here is right where this will line up with that 60-inch wide angle iron rail that I have on the trailer. So the operator is going to walk over here, kind of behind this wheel. So there will be a control arm that comes out through here, and primarily I was thinking that it would be less discomfort to the operator if the mufflers are on this side and then the primary operator's over there. There will be a lever over here for a secondary operator to push in the event you're doing a lot and you want to have two people on this thing. That's also a possibility. And with that, I wanted to be sure that the real important primary functions of oh crap, something bad has happened is available to either operator. And so I'll show you how this linkage all works here in just a minute. The second factor for putting the operator on this side is that way I can retain the original cables, the original clutch cable and the original throttle cable are just long enough to where they can fit right about to here, just on the inside here, or maybe slightly outside of here depending on how I route them. And that way I don't have to modify anything. I can use the original brake cable, or the original clutch cable, and the original throttle cable. My plan is to use the original throttle assembly. There's a couple really good reasons, I think, at least in my head. I'm sure if I'm wrong, you guys will tell me. But the first reason is that I have a shutoff switch right here. I have the start button, and I have a kill switch right here, which will be incorporated into a handle as the handle sits here. I gotta take care of this wire. And I can kill it as the primary operator, or I can start it. Secondly, this has a really nice spring return, so it's kind of the dead man switch. If for some reason your hands come off this control arm, this rig will go back down to idle speed, which is probably the most safe. Or if for some reason you slip and fall, or you fall off this thing, which is, I don't know, sometimes I'm clumsy and I can fall up, you know, I can fall off the ground, I suppose. If your hands come off of it, it's gonna snap back to idle, and yeah, it'll stop the power that way. So I think that's smart. I don't know. What do I know? What else have we done over here? Oh, there have been a couple questions. A couple people asked me if these thumb screws, if these thumb screws would be strong enough to hold the cutting trolley. This is the adjustable trolley that goes up and down to hold it in place. And of course I said, oh, absolutely. They're 1/2-inch bolts. I welded 2 1/2-inch nuts. They through friction here contact this 2x2 square steel, but just for fun, about 3 days ago I removed, you can see there's no spring assistance on either side of this. So right now it's being held up solely by these 2 thumb screws. A couple reasons why I removed that cable is because I slid the overhead spring back. Now somebody had mentioned it, and the reason why this frame was built this way was because initially I had intended to use a Kawasaki 440cc twin-cylinder 2-stroke engine, which is short and squat, and there was going to be a transfer case here to transfer the energy to the wheels with a CVT. It's an old snowmobile engine, and I figured I had a ton of room between here and here. Well, I never, in my remote wildest dreams, ever anticipated I would use a motorcycle to power this thing, or I would keep everything kind of in its original configuration, which I think is cooler. I think a 4-stroke is just a better option than that screaming 2-stroke, and I got some pretty good money for selling that 440. So with that being said, it changed my needs, wants, and desires for how this frame is going to work. And you can see as it sits right now, when the blade is down near that angle iron, which is where the feet are going to be when I weld that bar on there, to where this frame contacts this top bar, you get about 16 inches. And I could leave it that way, but I don't want to limit myself to only a 16-inch diameter log. Originally I was hoping for a 36, but that might be a pipe dream at this point. But that's alright, as close as I can get it is better. So what I did was I unbolted the overhead spring. Of course I removed the tension from the spring. There's no tension on this spring at all right now. And I slid it back as far as I could get it. You see it's right up against this spine here. And what that'll allow me to do is that'll allow me to reconfigure the top of this cage, and you see the tank will fit just in front of that center bearing, that center carrier bearing. First thing I did was I flipped the front wheel around. You see now the angle of the dangle there of the spoked alloy type wheel matches the back. So it spins like this. So now it looks correct. So right where the camera set up is pretty much where the operator is going to stand. The tachometer, which used to sit here, was damaged in the accident and it didn't work. Well, the case was pretty cracked, pretty good, so I pulled the case apart on it, and the PC board, there are two PC boards, one on either side. Both of them were smashed beyond repair, so that went in the garbage. Not a big deal. But what remains is the speedometer, and actually, in all reality, the speedometer is kind of where I wanted to have all my information anyway. This has the neutral light. This has a low oil level light, which I know works because when I first got this, the oil level was low, and that light, when I first fired it up, that light was on. And then when I did the oil change and put nice fresh oil that was topped off to the right level, the light shut off. So I know that works. I know the neutral light works, which are both important in my opinion. And the speedometer works. Here, let me set you up and I'll show you. You'll see we're going to be able to get miles per hour, and although it's kind of an arbitrary number, interestingly enough it's going to be an accurate number because these wheels are the same wheels that are calibrated to that, same wheels and tires that are calibrated to that speedometer. So I'll be able, and you see the odometer works, so I'll be able to have an arbitrary number. I could set this all to zeros on a new blade, and then when the blade finally gets dull or it fails or whatever, I can say, oh, okay, I had 100 miles or I had 50 miles on that blade. And I don't know, I guess it'll give me a good wear indicator as to where I am regarding the blade that's on here. And in addition to having an accurate number of miles, quote unquote, that are on this blade, I'll be able to tell what is the best blade speed. I think I have a good enough ear that, and with the 5-speed transmission, that I won't redline this engine. There's absolutely no reason for me not to keep it right about in the middle of its RPM sweet spot. So I'm thinking maybe $3,000, maybe 3,500 would be an adequate RPM, and then I can adjust the appropriate blade speed with the transmission. And this will allow me to get a good idea. And I could tell myself, oh, okay, so if we're cutting a 30-inch piece of Doug fir, a 30-inch diameter Doug fir tree, it likes 25 miles an hour. And again, those are arbitrary numbers. I have absolutely no idea what the actual blade speed is most ideal, but yeah, we'll both find out together. We'll have the camera rolling when I cut the first log, and we'll take it from there. So yeah, that's where the instrument cluster will be for the operator. So while the operator's standing here, I can engage the clutch or throttle, I can find my gear, and then release the clutch, and then the wheels of course will spin. If I need to stop it, I have the ability to hit the brake. Actually, this is a pull, excuse me. And I put one on either side. This is for the secondary operator that's going to stand here with some sort of pipe or something that you can help push and pull this machine back. And then if need be, the secondary operator can engage the brakes. And I'll show you how all this leverage works, but he can engage the brakes to stop the blade from spinning. I'm also going to put an ignition kill switch here, toggle switch of some kind, so the secondary operator can, if he sees something going bad, he can kill the engine or he can apply the brake from here. And if you're looking at the mill as we're looking at it, the logs are going to lay in the bed like this, and the mill will be coming towards us. So we'll consider this part of the mill, or this side of the mill, being the front of the cutting trolley. Now, with that being said, the two of the major components that are controlled on this motorcycle / band mill are now in front of the machine and will be within the confines of the band. So it's not as if you can come up here and just grab this and click this thing into gear, or you can come over here and make some kind of lever for the brake, because you're going to have a band that will be rotating around here, and that's no bueno. So with the beauty of that 10 by 24 lathe that I have, I had some steel stock. I cut and machined out 2 bushings for each control rod. This is 1/2 inch steel doweling. You see how it's black here and it's silver here. What I did was I turned down, I don't know, about a 32nd of an inch, just so there was enough of a shoulder to sit on the insides of this bushing, so this 1/2 inch rod will not walk in either direction. I did the same over here. So where did this piece of steel come from, you may ask? Well, if you remember the light bar slash headlight bar I made for the 48 8N tractor, I had disassembled and cut apart some Simpson strong ties, some seismic ties, and I used those to actually mount the headlights to. Well, this was a leftover piece. This was a bearing plate, and this actually was rectangular. It came down to about here. I just cut it and shaped it because I didn't want it, you know, looking super huge. But everything that's above here, figure the same amount was down here. This is where your foundation bolt went right through here, and it bolted down to the foundation of your house. I like it because it has a thick contact point against the gear shift lever, and I retained the little rubber toe condom here because I felt it would reduce the possibility for rattling. If it was metal on metal, it would be rattling. Maybe I'm just maybe there'll be so much noise that you'd never hear the rattle anyway, but it didn't hurt. It was already oval in shape, exactly like this. I just had to cut the bottom around these edges and then weld the rod to it, so that was pretty sweet. And the brake here, well, what did we do for the brake? 1/2 inch steel dowel. I don't know if you remember this piece of steel. This is a pretty hefty piece of steel here. This was the old crappy alternator bracket that came on the 48 8N. See, you guys, I don't throw anything away. I certainly don't throw away any steel. This is a good piece of flat stock. It was absolutely ridiculous for what they had it for that alternator bracket, because it had no adjustment to it. But for a brake lever, it works perfect. These holes were already drilled. This oval slot was already drilled. I just needed to file it out a little bit to slide over the rod, welded it in place. I did put a return spring on here just to make sure that we get this brake back to its, oh, we must be in gear, back to its non-contact position on the brake drum. And I'll show you how all that works on the other side here in just a minute. Okay, there it goes. I just kicked it back into neutral. So we don't have any dragging on the brake system with it back in its spring returned position. Alright, so over on what I'm going to call the backside of this mill, you see these are the bushings this is the gear shift bushing. I was half tempted to drill and tap or to friction fit in some Zerk fittings, but that just seemed like way overkill. These aren't reciprocating parts, this just got a little bit of movement. So I drilled I think those are 1/8 or 3/16 oiling holes. They're probably 3/16. So they all have oiling holes on them. And you just put a couple dribble drops in there and it goes in. This gear shifter, see if I can get you in there. I went through a phase with my little Toyota pickup truck where it seemed like every 3 or 4 months I would make a new gear shifter, and I'd run these really tall, goofy rat rod style gear shifters in that little bitty stock 2-wheel drive white pickup, the little shop truck or the work truck that I drive around here around town. And this was one of the creations. This is a Hurst quarter shifter that came out of an old Fox body Ford Mustang that I used to drag race, and it's flipped upside down right now. I heated it and bent this end. I think you can see it. And this is an SAE thread, and then the Toyota is a metric thread. So what I did was I had access to a lathe, and I turned a coupling down here to the right diameter on the inside on either side, and I took a tap and I tapped the whole metric on one side that was consistent with the metric threads on the end of a Toyota gear shifter, and then I tapped this SAE to match the threads here. So then I would thread this into the coupler. I'd thread the coupler directly onto the top of the Toyota gear shift lever, so there was no modification needed to it. Set screw, Hurst quarter shift, and then I took a pistol grip off a Beretta P92 9mm pistol. That's what this is. Took my scroll saw and I made, this was actually by far one of my favorite gear shifters I would run on that thing, and it worked really well. I've made them out of deer antlers. I had this big crazy looking deer antler that I grafted onto the end of that gear shifter for a while, and it still had the spurs on it, but it just seemed a little suicidal to have all these sharp points around me. But it was cool. I ran that for, you know, 6-8 months. I think I ran this one for about a year just because I liked it. And then right now I got nothing. I got the stock knob back on there. But anyhow, so I have these old gear shifts laying around, of course, because I don't throw anything away, and I thought it'd be kind of fun to have on here. You see I'm holding tension. This is that same 1/2-inch dowel, steel dowel, and I used a spring to keep the tension on there. I turned a spacer, yada yada, and then you can shift. Decided to retain the original control assembly that controls the choke. This little, this just puts it right on the neck here. I had some 10-inch sheet metal ducting, it's galvanized sheet metal, hanging around, so I cut the end out. This is, I don't know, about 7 inches or so. Yeah, but it's 10 inches diameter. It fit right around the outside of the existing auxiliary fan. I want to be able to make things on here that are not so permanently mounted that I can't upgrade or replace as it becomes necessary. I cut it so it has a little bit of space here. I cut it down purposely so the wind would get over the top of the cylinder. I felt if I had brought it all the way up to here, that would create some lack of cooling over the top of the head. So I cut it back a bit, and this thing really does move air. I'm going to hook up some power to it here in just a sec. I'll show you how well it moves air. So this is a single 3-inch band clamp. This is a single band clamp cut. I put 1/2 on this side and the other half on the other side, and then I just clamped it together. So it's held on here with friction, and it seems really, really sturdy. I think that's going to work just fine. I think that'll work out just fine. Feels like you're doing about 28 miles an hour. And hopefully I can keep this video under 30 minutes. I've been talking, seems like a long time. So I'll catch you guys in a little bit. Gotta go, gotta run. See ya!